Welcome and thank you for joining us for this Satori Software webinar. Today we will be talking about Satori Software's Monticello post-presort solution. Before we get started, let's cover just a couple of very quick housekeeping items. First off, if you'd like to connect with Satori Software, you can connect with us on social media via Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Next, this webinar is being recorded, and the recording of the entire webinar will be available via the satorisoftware.com website. You can find it in the webinars section. Next, and this is very important, there's a question box on the right-hand side of your screen. Please use that question box. Anita and Jean and myself are standing by. We would love to take your questions. Most of those questions entered via the question box on your screen will be batched up, and I'll be asking them of our speakers at the end of the webinar. However, if you've got something that pertains to the topic we're currently discussing, I'd be happy to insert that into the process. So please be part of this webinar. We want it to be interactive, and we'd love to hear from you while we're talking along if you've got questions or comments. Next, this webinar is scheduled to last about 60 minutes. Now, Anita and Jean really love this product. They've been with it for quite a while, and so when they get talking, there's a chance we might spill over, and especially if we've got some great questions coming in. So in the event that it runs long, we do want to be respectful of your time. As I mentioned, it's going to be recorded, so feel free to drop off. You can always come back and pick up the recording. We're going to try to keep it to 60 minutes, but again, once these guys get talking, sometimes that carries on. I'm Rob Perrin, the Director of Multimedia Marketing for Satori Software, and I'm going to be your host today. Also joining me are Anita Wood, and I guess I need to unmute Anita here, or it's not going to do any good to actually talk about her. Joining us is Anita Wood, Senior Product Manager. There we go. How are you?
I'm doing great, Rob. Thank you.
Excellent. And we've got Jean Renier, our solutions
engineer.
Hey, Rob. Hey, how are you, Jean? Welcome back.
Oh, thank you.
As I mentioned, you guys tend to get very, very excited about this product. And Jean, how long have you been with Monticello?
Oh, gosh. Rob, too long. 9 years.
How long did you say?
9.
9 years. That's a very long time in the software world. So yeah, Jean's been around a long time, and of course Anita is currently our product owner here at Satori Software for this product. And so very knowledgeable folks. They're going to fill us in on post-presort and what that means and why it's important to us and how the Monticello product fills us in that space. So that said, what do you say we get started here? I'm going to go ahead and hand control over to Anita.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
I can.
Okay. Thanks, Rob, for that introduction. Yeah, Jean and I do tend to get a little carried away, but it's passion, right? So today we're going to be looking at discovery level, high level. What is Monticello, and what kind of value can you expect to get out of it? And most importantly, like Rob said, we really do want to answer your questions. Whether those be business level or technical level. So I want to start with a list of common problems. And I'm starting here because I'm hoping this triggers some questions or some follow-up conversations that our guests might want to have with us. So an area that's pretty common is, and I think everybody is very familiar with, the mail preparation process and how long that is sometimes in the planning phases and how complex it can be. And things change. Mailings get delayed. You get differences in the product that's provided to you. You might be able to only mail partial mailings, or your mail pieces are too heavy or thick. So some other things I want you to answer for yourself. Have you had to rerun your presort process more than once in the last month? And do you know how much that's costing you? Or do you have spoilage and shortage on the production floor? Another common area is related to the USPS's mailer scorecard, and I think everybody's been experiencing some pain points associated with that, and just a couple common areas where our customers are seeing some issues, by for challenges related to full service, and errors due to origin information.
What is a Monticello, Anita? How does Monticello address these things?
Okay, so really Monticello is just one part of Satori Software's end-to-end suite, and that entails everything from data and address quality to right through the full mail process. So Monticello comes in play after the mail sorting or pre-sorting step, and it provides mailers additional cost savings opportunities. It enables you to manage your mail.dat file. Without Monticello, you would incur additional steps in your process because you would need to rerun the pre-sort in order to make any changes to the mail.dat file. Rerunning the pre-sort doesn't only cause rework and delays, there's also an increase in risk for errors such as uniqueness issues. So this area of mail.dat management is usually an initial driver for customers who've started using post-sorting process or solutions. We've designed Monticello so that you only need to purchase the functionality you need. So some of the additional functionality helps you save costs in areas like dropshipping and dynamic entry planning and co-palletization. And I'm going to jump back to typical drivers. The typical drivers for adding post-sorting to the process are to decrease postage costs and to improve efficiencies in the process. And I think everybody here understands the increasing cost sensitivity in the industry, a lot of additional pressure in that area.
I've got a question here, Anita. Where do customers typically start when they enter the post-pre-sort space?
That's a good question, and that leads right into my next slide here. So the core product of MAILdb has everything you need really to do your post sorting, especially if you're just getting started. In fact, it's quite fully loaded. Just an example there, like working with spoilage and sibling containers, that's included in this core functionality, and with competing product, you'll be paying an additional $30,000 for those two features. So anyway, so any additional functionality is geared to various specialties, so to speak, such as logistic organizations. With MAILdb, you're looking at a few high-level goals: streamlining process, gaining higher discounts, and being compliant with the USPS.
So streamlining is something that I've heard come up in various customer visits that I've been at. Of course, everybody wants to work more efficiently.
Right.
Can you expand on streamlining? Talk to me a little bit about MAILdb and streamlining, and what am I going to see out of this?
Okay, and that's really the second bullet here. It's very rare, like I alluded to in the list of problems at the beginning, it's very rare that things don't change after the pre-sort has been completed. Things happen along the way, right? So our customers are using MAILdb every single day to change things like mailing dates, piece weight, and to validate against Postal 1 and then make necessary changes. Because we all know that Postal 1 is rarely error-free. And again, this is so they don't have to go back and run that pre-sort again. I'll share some examples. You might plan your mailing to go out on a certain date, but your supplier experiences a delay in getting the product to you. So you've already prepared your mailing using that original planned mailing date, and if you don't ship it on that date, your mailing may no longer be legal. So Monticello lets you very easily and quickly change that mailing date in your mail.dat file right there on the spot on the production floor. Or another scenario, the product that your supplier does finally do has changed slightly and has a different weight than it has in the past. This is pretty common when suppliers are using multiple manufacturing facilities to provide the same product. Those facilities sometimes use different materials, which impacts the weight. Again, instead of having to go back to that pre-sort step to make the piece weight change and rerun the pre-sort, you can simply change the piece weight right in MAILdb. One more common example in this area is, like you see on the screen here, is splitting mailings. Let's say you prepared your mailing and it's ready to go. You might have combined several mailings in order to get a better entry discount, even though your marketing plan was to phase the delivery of that mail across several days, to monitor, to space out the responses. You can use MAILdb to very easily split that mailing, send part of it out today and part of it out next week, and the remaining in the third week, or whatever your marketing schedule calls for. Without Monticello, you would have to run those all as separate mailings in your pre-sort process, and you wouldn't get that higher entry discount that you were going for by combining those mailings in the first place.
Okay, let me interrupt you for just a second there, Anita. You keep saying
Okay.
MailDB
and mail.dat. Can you explain what is MailDB and what is mail.dat?
Okay, yeah, of course. Yeah, let's back up a step. Okay, so MailDB is the Monticello product, the Satori software product. Mail.dat is not a Satori software product. That's really it's an industry standard that's been around for about 25 years, and it's developed and maintained by a nonprofit industry association called ID Alliance, and many of our guests are probably familiar with that association. And they work very closely with industry and the USPS to maintain that standard. And what mail.dat is, it's essentially a relational database that contains all possible characteristics about your mailing. And it contains data elements representing any conceivable variable that might be present in a mailing. So with mail.dat, you can electronically communicate with the USPS. It's essentially a replacement for the traditional hard copy documentation. And we have, as an industry, the goal was, and we've really accomplished this, is to experience significant efficiencies and improved communications by using mail.dat. So again, it's not a Satori component of the solution, but it's that industry standard relational database that's required.
In passing, you mentioned full service. What's the status? My understanding was that full service was not mandatory at this point, that they sort of slid back. From talking to Bob Shimmick, they sort of
right.
They decided not to go forth with that. Where are we with full service?
Okay, I'm going to back up a step there too for any callers who might not be familiar with full service. That's a USPS program that helps mailers receive additional discounts on automation mailings, and it helps save some costs in other areas as well, like permit fees. And the goal with that program was to improve delivery accuracy and as well as mail entry visibility and tracking. It's one of several programs that the USPS introduced in order to move us all towards electronic documentation, right? And frankly, it allows them to more easily assess or invoice non-compliance with mailings. So in the last couple of years, the USPS really pushed this program, and it slowed down a little bit, but many of our customers needed Monticello to be compliant or participate, and they used it as a way to add a competitive differentiator to what they were already offering. At some point, the program will be mandatory, and yeah, that mandate is the stats that you're asking about. Personally, I think the USPS is already indirectly mandating it, if that's a thing, by offering every new discount program, such as promotions, mail anywhere, only to mailers who are full service compliant. But yeah, it will likely still officially be mandated at some point. Right now, industry is at about 90%, approaching 90%. I think it's like 87 or something like that, full service compliant. The USPS has stated recently that their goal is 95%. And we believe that once industry reaches that 95%, that the USPS will likely mandate full service.
Now, Bob Shimmick, our Senior Director of Postal Affairs, does a program on Mondays where he talks pretty extensively about the goings-on in the USPS, and one of the things mentioned there was that there was a very strong incentive to head for full service, that effectively, as you said, it's not mandated, but at the same time there are many discounts, many benefits to going there. The USPS has come up with sort of a roundabout way to, and we'll put air quotes around this, encourage mailers for full service.
That's right. That's right.
Now, tie this back to Monticello. Why is that important to the folks who have tuned into this webinar? How does full service and mail.dat and Monticello, how do these things all come together?
I'd say that if we're talking full service and USPS programs, I think one of the most important points is that these programs, although valuable and highly encouraged, like you say, can be very intimidating, confusing, and challenging. There's full service, but there are also others, such as e-induction and seamless acceptance. You can see e-induction mentioned on the slide here, which we do support. And just a note there too is that the USPS recently stated that e-induction is required in order to participate in seamless acceptance. So they all tie together, they all feed into each other. And usually when the USPS is ramping up on new programs, there's a lot of change and contradictory information and a lot of trial and error going on their part, but also, you know, on everyone's part. And this can easily send a mailer down the wrong path. Our customers leverage our regulatory expertise and influence to help them successfully and efficiently certify for a program. And Jean helped a lot of our customers ramp up and get ready for these and make sure that they're compliant and can certify for these programs. And one of the customers she worked with, actually, I'm going to share a quote here. He said, "Satori Software advocated for us and assured us with certainty when we were being given contradictory information by the USPS." So it's really about our superior support and service.
It's funny that you mentioned Jean, because every time we've ever had a web event, she has a following, and people actually tune in to listen to Jean, and then afterwards I get comments in the survey about what a rock star Jean is. And so we hear that on the phones, we hear that via the webinars, et cetera. Jean has been, of course, a decade worth of time spent on Monticello. I guess you would get a following at that point.
That's right, that's right. She's one of many experts, product technical level experts we have here, and quite fascinating.
She's muted her microphone.
If you want to be technical, it's 14 years I've been working with Monticello as a user.
So a decade and a half, Jean. That's a very long time. Yes, it is.
Keeps me out of trouble.
No, that's not what I hear. You mentioned that there are other products in the suite, Anita, other than MAILdb. Can you talk a little bit about, to call it a suite, obviously that means there's more than one. Talk a little bit about what that encompasses.
Right, sure. And it's really areas of functionality. So I'm just going to look at this a little bit at a high level here. Again, hopefully this triggers some questions or future conversations that our guests might want to have with us. There's a lot of functionality here. I'm going to touch on it. Jean, add what you think might be relevant at this high level. This first area, managing postage statements. This is really about generating postage statements, whether that's for full mailings or partial submission. And our customers use the reports quite a bit for use in production, quality control, any kind of documentation they need to do, and to help them facilitate acceptance of the mailings. They also are able to do control checks against Postal One postage calculations, make sure you're getting the right postage, right? And any postage statement transaction information is also stored in this area of functionality so that you can use it for whatever tracking, monitoring you're doing, or troubleshooting if you're having issues in acceptance, for example, or scorecard issue.
It appears that Anita has dropped off. Hey, Anita, if you could dial back in. It looks like we lost you via the connection there. So, Jean, are you still with us?
I'm still here.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and mute Anita while she dials back in again. Anita, let us know what...
There she is.
Anita, did you come back?
Muted?
Okay, you're back.
Okay. Did you hear me talk about entry points?
Nope.
No.
No. Okay, so let's go to the second point here. Optimizing entry points is really about drop shipping. So with this area of functionality, you can quickly and efficiently determine entry points, pinpointing exact costs and benefits of shipping to an entry point. And you can do this using your own business rules, like say, I only want to go to this entry point if I save a minimum of $500, for example. So you can integrate your own business rules. And then you do an analysis of the various entry points that meet your business rules to come up with that optimized dropship plan. And you can do comparisons against different carriers to see which ones will help you get the best rates, right? Save the most costs, essentially. And something I want to point out here is that we do support the newer entry points such as DFSS and hubs. and any new pricing incentives that go around those. So optimizing pallet preparation. This is where you evaluate and combine mailings for higher discounts. You can quickly create pallets from loose containers scattered across multiple jobs. And this area of functionality is fully compliant with USPS standards for pallet preparation. And with this, you make sure that you are getting those appropriate dropship discounts. And if any of our guests have a CSA, a customer supplier agreement, and you know if you do, you can create pallet separations based on that CSA. Automation is really important to some of our customers. You know, the ability to eliminate labor costs for any routine tasks. Again, the cost sensitivity in the industry it comes into play here quite a bit. In this area, you can automatically import, archive, export, perform batch updates. So this has helped our customers quite a great deal. And I would say that almost all of our customers use this automation in some way or another, and some of them are fully automated. USPS fast appointments. You can make appointments in the FAST system, including simultaneous requests for multiple appointments. And what this does is help you decrease dock wait time, and it also allows you to collect and organize and work with any closeout information. And this is becoming increasingly important for e-induction, one of the USPS programs I mentioned earlier. Making fast appointments is required for participation in e-induction. So this area of functionality is getting a little bit more attention recently. And then the last point here, sequencing addresses. Often critical data elements such as entry point, pallet number, truck number, shipping date are determined only after the pre-sort's been run. So that information is not included in your name address records, but they're there in the MAILdb database. So you can add that information to the name address records to make sure the mail comes off the line already in entry point sequence, for example. And obviously this will help eliminate staging operations, maximize use of the production floor space. It really simplifies and speeds up loading and minimizes shipping delays, right?
Perfect. And before we continue, Anita, I'd like to interrupt with a question for Jean very quick. We've got a lot of questions coming in from people via the question box, and what they're asking in particular is if you could compare and contrast mail.xml and mail.dat. There's a lot of discussion about I use mail.xml. Should I be looking at mail.dat? Does Monticello work against mail.xml? Should I be using Monticello? Could you talk to that, Jean?
Mail.xml is great for the folks that all their mail goes out at the same time. So it's just one mailing date for a mailing. And it's great, like for example, bulk mailer, you basically press a button and it automatically goes behind the scenes, uploads to Postal One. Very, very seamless process. Whereas with the mail.dat, there's a little bit more effort that's involved. But again, it allows you the flexibility to make changes to a job, spoilages and shortages, being able to send part of your mail today and part of your mail tomorrow, or however many days in between, and to do some QC of, you know, let's say you have a by-for issue, you can actually go in and look at the file and see that by-for information a lot easier than you can in an XML.
Is there a piece threshold? Is there a point at which I am just too big for mail.xml?
We're seeing problems when you get above 800,000. It's supposed to be allow you to do more than that, but there's been some issues.
Perfect. Now, Anita, with that in mind, talk to me a little bit about value. Obviously, there's some benefits to going mail.dat and Monticello to manipulate the files, etc. Talk to me a little bit about value. Obviously, I get the software. What am I going to see? What am I going to experience?
Okay, good. Yeah, this is, to me, one of the most important areas. So what else besides the software, right? What else are we getting from a value perspective? For us, this isn't just about the software. It's about our relationship with the customers. as well as with the industry and the USPS. It's really a fascinating ecosystem, and to ignore any piece of it does us no favors, right? So I frequently talk to customers and to get their feedback, whether it's input for the roadmap and requirements analysis, prototyping, and lots of engagement with the customers. And these are recurring messages that we're hearing at Satori Software. We easily provide the best support, service, and training. And again, this is not just about the software, but about having that mailing regulatory expertise. And we're not just involved in industry associations and, say, USPS work groups, but we're in leadership roles. So we're true advocates for our customers. We know pretty early on if something that the USPS is planning might have a negative impact on our customers. So we advocate and make sure that that doesn't happen. And another area that our customers appreciate is the flexibility to purchase only what they need. And like I said early on, we don't do any nickel and diming or pushy upselling. And in fact, we've had several customers switch to us because of this. And I mentioned already about the core product being fully uploaded. So you purchase what you need, and if you don't need anything more, that's great. We've provided value to you. Pretty important, and this is pretty timely here. We were at MPF, was it 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we heard from a lot of customers and even non-customers who commended us for being able to get this, can I say, chaotic rate case out the door on time, but also reliable. And no other vendor had been able to do that at that point, and we're still trying to decipher the rules and the confusion. So that's very, very important to our customers, because they can count on us to help them have that lead time to prepare for the implementation of the new rates and rules, essentially. So like I said, I talk to customers a lot, and we all at Satori Software talk to our customers a lot, and they tell us that they appreciate this collaborative engagement. They visibly see improvements that we're making in our products based in Monticello based on the feedback they've given us, and they very much appreciate that. But I'm going to let the customer speak for themselves. I've included some quotes here that are representative of the value that they're getting and the experience they have working with us. I know, Rob, you don't like me reading, but I'm going to read these. They're important. The Satori Software team has a good understanding of what is going on in the industry and where it is heading. This is a complex and changing industry, and just knowing how the software operates is not enough. I don't always use all of the Monticello functions all the time. Satori Support is always willing to provide refresher training on the lesser used functions. Satori Support is easy to reach and responds quickly. From day one to the present, we have confidence the people at Satori have always been right when we've had to argue with the USPS. And who hasn't had to argue with the USPS, right? So for us, that alone is worth the price of admission. And my favorite one, I know this is a lot of words, but it's right on the money, and it's so representative of what our customers are experiencing. We asked this customer to share what they would tell someone if asked how they justify the purchase of Monticello. And this is what he said. If you're ever in trouble with your mail.dats, you can call, and Satori Software will help you get through the problem. There are times when your back's against the wall, time is expiring, your mail.dat just failed, and your clerk is telling you that you have 10 minutes before your most demanding customer's job that is due out today will be rejected. At those times, you're not thinking about how much money you saved by using your software, and you're not thinking about how if you leave a message with your vendor, they might get back to you by mid-morning the next day. You're thinking that you want somebody to pick up the phone and tell you how to fix the problem that they didn't even create. And even though I've justified the purchase 100 times before that, that experience will take away any lingering doubts.
That's some powerful stuff, Anita. And
right?
Borne out by every customer visit that I've ever been on, Monticello. Rabid, loyal customers on this one. It seems that it's worth the upgrade.
Yep.
It's why I came to Monticello, was because being an actual user of the software and knowing when our bindery line stopped that it was something that was done by, at the time, Terry Lee, to get us back online, you remember that stuff. And it's just really flexible software.
It's excellent stuff. Now, while we are waiting for some questions to come in here, Anita, perhaps you could summarize for us a little bit about what we've learned here and talk a little bit about the sort of things that people should take away from this webinar.
Of course. So again, it's two areas, right? If you're talking solution, if you want a solution to help you reduce costs and improve efficiencies in addition to what you're already getting from your pre-sort solution or process, Monticello is the most robust and reliable approach. And then that second area, right? You're not just getting great software, you're getting a great partnership, that guidance and collaboration with the experts at Satori Software.
Good stuff. Gene, touch on that a little again. I thought that was an important story there. Why did you come to Monticello, and why do you stay? You are an industry expert in this space. Talk to us a little bit about what about Monticello keeps you around, and Satori.
I just see so many times where when we've been able to get someone's mail out the door because of something we were able to show them how to change in Monticello, and that makes your day. It keeps you coming to work because you know you've helped somebody out.
Now, I do want to throw out here, Gene, that in the question box, as stuff is coming in, I now have 4 different comments that refer to you as a rock star, and one just came in that says, Gene is the greatest of all time. So heads up, your fan club has attended.
Thank you, fan club.
Anita, you talked a little bit about uniqueness issues. Can you touch upon what that means and what you meant by it?
Yes, so part of being full service compliant, your pieces and barcodes, everything has these uniqueness rules revolving around them, and you can't have non-uniqueness going on. And sometimes if you rerun the same pre-sort again and you do just a little thing, you make a little mistake, all of a sudden you have non-uniqueness all over the place, and that could result in rejected mail. Well, maybe not even if your mail goes through, if you can get your mail out, you're going to get scorecard issues. You're going to get non-compliance fees on that. So you don't really want to go back and redo a pre-sort.
So a question came in, and they're asking whether or not, talk a little bit about the suite, and specifically they'd like to know, does Monticello work with bulk mailer? Can you integrate directly with the walk sequence within bulk mailer? And what do you have to do to make these things talk to each other, get along with one another? Where are these lines, and how does the Satori suite as a whole work together?
Sure. So as far as bulk mailers concerned, there is some of the Monticello functionality is already integrated right within the product, and I think that's in the, I don't manage that product, but I think it's the business edition where you can have access to some of the Monticello functionality. So some of the more common areas of, changing dates, changing piece weight that I was talking about, is already available in bulk mailer.
So we have the bulk mailer product, and then at sort of the large scale end, we've got Architect, and this question says, I use Satori Architect for pre-sorting currently. Some of our mailing batches are under 500 pieces. We'd like to be able to combine these batches to get pre-sort discounts. Does Monticello allow us to combine? And can you talk about the process?
Yes, and maybe I'll have Jean help me out with this if we want to get into like more the how-to here. But yes, after you have multiple mailings that you want to combine to get better discounts, yes, you can do that with Monticello. And Jean, if you want to add a little bit to that. And
that would just be entry discounts. If they were looking to improve, like for example, first class mail, improve your 5-digit, that really would need to be in pre-sort through a commingle process. And that's actually one of our pre-sort products where you can actually commingle mail.
back to the mail.xml versus mail.dat. The question here is, we've got some folks here who say they don't need mail.dat. They're currently, or at least they don't perceive that they need mail.dat. They're using mail.xml. They're wondering if there is a benefit to using Monticello with mail.xml.
I would say that if you're not having issues with XML, stay with XML until you find that you need mail.dat. We do not want people getting our software and not using it. This is really for people that have things that just keep happening on the production floor. They keep having to rerun their presort, and often when they try to rerun it, it's not matching the mailing. So if everything is very straightforward and you don't have to make changes, stick with XML.
So, Gene, you just recommended someone not buy the product? That's a scary thing, isn't it?
Hey, our goal is to make our customers happy.
Exactly.
And
we do that on a pretty regular basis, actually. There's a question here. How can I get a manual for the software? It says, I get the feeling we are not using all of the functionality. And by the way, Jean is great. I love her.
I can answer that one. We are really focusing a lot on customer enablement tools. We have tech support articles in our knowledge base. We have a new user guide that if whoever asked that question, we can certainly make that available to you. And if you're a current customer, I think you might already have access to it. But yes, we do have a user guide.
Okay, perfect. Let's see what else we got here. We have a comment here from a gentleman who says that he's using Monticello and Bulk Mailer together, and he's found them to work seamlessly together. Says he's been doing exactly that for the past year or so. Next question, is Monticello just for correcting single presort, or does it allow us to commingle mail? Gene, might be you.
No, you can't commingle. What you can do is co-palletize. So if you've got mail that has an opportunity to drop ship, but you don't have enough pieces in one mailing, you can take and combine, for example, trays and put them onto the same pallet from multiple jobs and be able to get that entry discount. But whenever you're talking about improving your 5-digit count, for example, that's on the presort side.
Perfect. I've got someone here who asked us to elaborate, but it's not clear what they want us to elaborate on. So go ahead and rephrase your question, please, sir. All right. Let's see what else have we got here. Jean, perhaps you could...
Oh, there's one thing we didn't point out. Someone had asked about bulk mailer and walk sequence. Mm-hmm. What happens when you output a mail.dat is there is actually a walk sequence record. And when you upload that to Postal One, it actually generates the walk sequence report. You can also see the walk sequence report within MAILdb.
So there's a couple of questions here, Anita, that talk a little bit about what you can expect in dealing with Satori software. Suppose someone called the number that's on the screen right now and said, I want to buy Monticello. What's that process look like? What's the install look like? What's the integration look like? What could you expect if you said right now, this sounds like the smart thing for me to do, mail.dat would pay off for me, I want to go here. Talk a little bit, Anita, about what that would look like to your average customer calling in.
Sure. So if you call this number, we're going to make sure that we understand your business and what problems you're trying to solve, and really have probably a pretty long conversation with you about what it is that you're looking for. And sometimes, this is sometimes a very new space, the post sorting, a new space for people wondering if, can I gain from this? And so they sometimes don't even understand or notice some of the problems that they're having. So we'll work with them quite a bit to make sure that we're helping them solve the right business problems, right? And then maybe take that across their whole process. We want to know not just on your post sorting, what are the problems there, but across your whole process. We have many conversations and site visits where, even though it has nothing to do with our products or our solutions, tell us about your process. Where do you have pain points, and what can we do to help you, right? So and that's sometimes a longer conversation, So once that happens, it's a matter of talking about how we might be able to solve those problems, and then taking it from there.
There's actually a comment. There's a comment here from someone who is speaking to a previous slide, Anita, and they say that they actually had a mail that was sitting on a dock and it was in the process of being rejected, and they got Jean on the phone just this past week, and Jean was able to solve the problem and get their mailing out. So a perfect live example of something that you pointed out in an earlier slide.
Right. Thanks for adding that.
There's a lot of discussion going on here in the chat box, people talking a little bit about thresholds again, and perhaps we could clarify even more where is that line as a small to medium-sized mailer? How do I know if I'm ready to take the jump to mail.dat and Monticello? Or as Jean pointed out, can I maybe get by a little longer with mail.xml? Can I save the money? Where's that break-even point where this just makes sense?
And I think that ties to the last question you asked me, Rob. That is so specific to each individual customer or mailer that having a conversation with us is pretty important there. That threshold is different for everyone, right? It depends on what type of mail you're doing, what your volumes are, what your processes are, what kind of skill sets you have on your teams. So I would say that there's not a single answer to that question.
And I do want to point out there have been a couple of questions that have come in about pricing and about how this would apply. And as you heard earlier, and you're not going to hear it on a lot of companies' webinars, but Jean was willing to point out that this isn't for everybody. There's a point at which this makes sense, and we're not going to try to sell it. So when you see a phone number on the screen and it's a sales number or an email address, feel free to get hold of that. They'll help you work through whether this is the right product for you. At Satori, our policy has always been, obviously we're a for-profit software company, but at the same time, we'd rather hang on to our customers in the long term. We are in this industry for the long term, and so as a result, feel free, get hold of that phone number that's currently on the screen or email in. And if it turns out it's a technical question that's beyond the sales team, at that point, they'll pull Jean in as well to make sure you get your questions answered. So price-wise, or for demos, or for additional information, or curious whether it's right for you, that is the correct spot. You're not going to get somebody on the phone who tries to sell something you don't need. Question about can you send one pre-sorted job in 3 different portions on different days? So there's a question about piecing things out, Jean, probably for you.
Absolutely.
That was easy.
That's very easy to do.
Okay. So there's a mailer here once again, and I understand that we're kind of beating a dead horse with the does this work for me, and we need to look at those on a case-by-case basis, but this seems pretty obvious. There's a person here who says that they mail more than 1 million pieces a year, and they're wondering whether they should be looking at this product.
I'm going to guess. Go ahead, Jean.
If they're mailing more than 1 million pieces a year, that they definitely should be e-doc. If they're not, we can certainly help them with getting there.
Now I wanted to mention, we talked a little bit about the sort of brain trust that we have here at Satori. We've talked a lot about Jean and her fan base and her time spent, what was that, Jean, 35 years at Monticello, something like that?
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of folks who have been in the industry for a very long time. I mentioned Bob Shimmick, and Bob does a regular program on our blog where he talks extensively every week about this week in mailing and the things that you're going to need to know, regulatory or price changes or things that are coming down the pipeline. On top of that, we've got folks like Kim Mock and the like. And so this is a company that is very postal oriented, and we actually continue to invest in this space. We're expanding our webinar program, et cetera. And so this is something where you can count on support. The sort of things, we make fun of Jean when we talk about her fan club showing up on these things, but of course, in a software industry, for us to have a following, and for Jean to have a following like that, it obviously indicates that desire to do the right thing by the customer. And I know, Anita, that's one of the things that attracted you to us and that keeps you with us.
Absolutely. I'm very honored to work with this team. I'll put a plug in for the development team as well, and the Scrum team. They know what they're doing, and they get things done right. to make it easy for me.
And that's interesting. We've got a lot of the folks who actually developed this are, and I mean this in the kindest possible way, but mail geeks. We've got people who actually read the DMM and understand those millions of pages there. And we've got a guy named Kevin Brooks, who's the dev manager for Monticello and actually drives the development process. And so there is a goal here to be very customer oriented, like all Satori products, but in particular, Monticello is one that we get a lot of folks that kind of come on board and really enjoy the experience. So it's a small but close-knit team on that side of the house. So let's see here. Basically, in summary, one of the things that we do want to talk about is that in the event that this sounds like something that might be intriguing to you, or you anticipate your business growing enough that mail.dat is going to make sense, then obviously Monticello is a direction that you're going to want to look at. As everyone on the webinar has mentioned, feel free to give the phone number on the screen a call or email, and we're going to get you set up, and they'll pass you along to Jean or Anita if that's appropriate. Anita, Jean, have you got any kind of final thoughts here?
I'm very thankful for everyone who has joined today. I appreciate your time, and we look forward to working with you in this partnership.
I would second that.
It's perfect.
Thanks for joining us.
We do want to thank everybody for attending this webinar, and we do appreciate your time. Now, I do want to mention that there's going to be a short survey here as we end the webinar, and we'd love it if you'd fill out that survey. It gives us information on how we can improve our webinar series and things that we can do moving forward. We're hoping this was valuable to you, and if you found it thus, we'd love to hear that. If you didn't, let us know what we can do moving forward. The recorded session for this webinar will be available up on the SatoriSoftware.com website, and there will be some presentation slides. The slide deck from this will be available up there as well. I do want to thank Jean. Thanks for joining us. I appreciate you bringing along your fan club. That definitely drove up our attendance numbers today. And I want to thank Anita. Anita, thank you very much as product owner. It's always great to have you on board, and your enthusiasm for the product is obvious. I think it's contagious even. We'd like to thank everybody who tuned in today, and we'd like to, we really appreciate it when you attend these things. For Satori Software, I'm Rob Perrin, the Director of Multimedia Marketing. And once again, I want to thank you for attending this webinar, and on behalf of everyone here at Satori, I'd like to wish you smooth mailing ahead.